So basically, your kingdom spouse, obviously many of you, the Lord has asked you to reach out to them, basically tell them this, tell them that. And sometimes they've received it and sometimes they just seem like they're not interested and like, almost like go away energy. And many of you have felt like your ego's hit because it's like, Lord, I'm not used to this. No man rejects me. Like no one really rejects me. I'm used to guys wanting me. And even if you've been rejected, it could be a little thing here or there, but not like to this capacity. And so a lot of you have felt just this a bit of an ego hit and a bit surprised that God would want us to do these types of things of reaching out to a man when that man should be reaching out to us. And some of you as men have reached out as well. Maybe the Lord has showed you you're meant to be with someone and that person's engaged to somebody else. And so you're like, wow, how can I stand for this person when they're engaged? It just doesn't make sense in the natural, but it's still something that God wants you to do because He's already showed you that's your wife and there's nothing you can do about it. And some of these situations are so unconventional. They don't make sense, but God is the one that's going to bring them out of the wrong relationships or the wrong connections. In fact, a lot of you are ready to receive your kingdom spouse any day from now, any week from now, any month from now. Like literally within a short time, they are coming back. They're being rerouted, redirected. They're doing a U-turn and they're coming right back to where it all began. So that's why this song is so powerful, because it's like this song is basically saying, come back, like it's basically back to the world. And it's like the chorus is all about saying, come back, come back. And so the next part of the song goes like this. You will think that I'll be better now, but I'm not, 'cause I don't have you. You will think that I am better now, but I'm not, 'cause I don't have you. Come back to the world, come back to the world. Baby, back to my world. Come back to the world, come back to the world. Baby, back to my world. Go listen to the song so you can hear it for yourself, but it's just such a beautiful song. And, I believe that God has sort of kept me stuck on this song. It's almost like He's not let this song leave me, because this is the time for the actual reunion with my kingdom spouse. It's time for me to, be in my kingdom marriage. But obviously God has to do anything else that needs to be done, whether it's more finalizing, whether it's whatever other pruning He needs to do. And so He is going to most certainly continue to and one thing I'll say is, a lot of us have to realize that everything we've been praying for, God is answering. And so don't be surprised if He is slamming some doors shut in your face. If He is shaking up the plans, if He is allowing people to basically let go of you in a company or whatever, don't be surprised, because it's all to do with you being with your kingdom spouse, bringing you together. You've both been living your best independent lives, or maybe they've been living more of their best life now because God has to bring them to the end of themselves. But God has already brought you to the end of yourself a while ago. I think that many of us, the ones that are standing, we've already been there and done that, and we've already lived that life where we've been pursuing things, and we've already realized that, do you know what, God's way is the way, and that is that. What God says goes. Because I know that many of you know that you've lived your life your way, tried things your way, and it didn't work, and it caused more pain and more grief. Even if you felt like, oh, I'm trying to do what God wants, you're trying to slap God's will on your plan. No, even that causes a lot of pain or problems that are unnecessary. And so it's like, okay, God, if this is what you're saying, I surrender immediately. I'm all in. And I think many of us thought that's what will happen with our kingdom spouses, and it didn't. And it's been like, oh my God, Lord, I can't believe that I'm standing for this amount of time and this has happened and but all things work together for good, and everything is beautiful in its time according to the word of God. So basically where it says, you would think that I'll be better now, but I'm not, because I don't have you, it's almost like things have just been getting worse and worse. And they are beginning to really see that there is nothing they can do other than return to the Lord and turn back to you. A lot of them are afraid to do this because there's a lot of repenting they're going to have to do, apologizing, righting wrongs. But the Lord is saying, forgive, be merciful, do not hold it against them, no grudges. Some of you might find that very difficult because it's like, oh my God, they rejected me and they hurt me and they treated me this way and they laughed at me or whatever. They thought I was crazy. And now it's like, oh, now I have to just forgive them. And the answer is yes, you do have to forgive them the way that Christ forgave you. Now, this does not mean that you may not have to have a talk with them at some point. The Lord will allow you to have your communication with them, but forgive. Because if you want to be with them, you know, there was this article I looked at recently, and even the article, and this is an article about, you know, reconciliation to do with like relationships, and it said the same thing. This is a secular article, and they're saying if you want to basically, you know, reconcile, you know, with an ex or whatever, or reconcile with a friend or whatever it would be, you will need to forgive. And they said if you're not willing to forgive and let go of the grudges, then there's no point in wanting to be back with that person. So that's one thing you're going to have to do. We're going to have to do. And I definitely think that God is really working on that in many of our lives, so that this does not affect the marriage, because there's nothing worse than getting married. And I think one of the fear of the prodigal, one of the biggest fears that they have, is that we're going to hang this over their head for years to come or months to come. We're going to always bring it up like, oh, you didn't want me that time, and and things like that, you know, just really rubbing it in. Oh, remember you said you didn't love me. Oh, remember you oh, so now you want me now, this. Oh, because God said so. Oh, I wasn't good enough before, or whatever it would be. And I think God has tried to test some of us with this, and some of us have failed the test. We did sort of say one or two things we shouldn't have said, or maybe a bit more. Like maybe God could have allowed you to reconnect, or maybe he could have said reach out, and then you just now gave them a piece of your mind, and that was not what you're meant to do. And so God is like, okay, you failed the test. Let's try again. That is not what I asked you to do. I asked you to love this person. So yeah. And same with them. They've been told, oh, go and reach out. And then when they did, they didn't do what God said. And then they got distracted again for the 15th time, and so on and so forth. So there's fault on both sides. But for some of you, the fault is mainly on your kingdom spouse's side. For some of you, it's not really you, it's just them. Because you did everything God said, and they just didn't do anything God said. So they're not better off without you. It's never been worse. And I'm telling you guys, there have been some times where normally things that I would have enjoyed, I don't enjoy it, because it's like, I don't care. I just want my husband. I just want my kingdom spouse. You know, I just want him. I don't care about this. And that's exactly how they felt. The things that would have really given them that pleasure before, that joy, they're just like, where is she? Where is he? Oh, this would be so much better if she was here, if he was here. It's like they look at the room and they're like, oh, if only she was here. If only he was here. So you'd think that I'm better now, but I'm not, because I don't have you. And so that's what they're saying. And then the chorus is, come back to the world, baby, back to my world. So basically they're just saying, come back. And, you know, many of you, they've been pursuing you like that, and then you've been pursuing them. No, you come back. And so it's almost like this game, this spiritual game. You come back. No, you come back. And then eventually it turns to the natural. Then you reach out, and they reject you, and you're like, but you told me, you know, it's almost like you're like, but you told me to come. And it's a spiritual thing. It's not natural. That's why it's so confusing, or it seems confusing, because, and the thing about the natural and the spiritual is it doesn't always collide at the right time. It sometimes manifests later. So you might have, you know, there have been times where the Lord has shown me that me and my kingdom spouse are communicating, like we're talking. And then all of a sudden I start noticing that it happens. We start having positive communication, even if it's just for a short time. So I'm like, oh my God, the dream came true, or whatever. Like there was a time where the Lord showed me that I accidentally liked one of his posts on TikTok. Oh my goodness. And one day, lo and behold, I just saw this post pop up. I didn't even go to his page. I saw this post pop up, and I just so happened to just like it because it was like the news or something, that I didn't know that he posted it. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I quickly unliked it, and it was too late. So he probably realized that, oh my gosh, he liked my post. And that dream came to pass. And I've been trying to do anything to avoid something like that, but it happened. And so these are the types of things. And I'm like, Lord, why don't you make that happen with him? Why can't he trip up and show me that he loves me if he really does love me? But, everything will happen in God's time. And we don't want any games. One thing that I believe is the Lord is over with the games. Some of you have played games. There's been some games, but God is like, the games are over. And that's why God may have said you need to maybe block them, because they need to stop watching you on social media and they need to come forward. And it's also a sign that God is like, it's almost like God is trying to say, listen, if you do not hurry up, I'll take my daughter from you. I'll take my son. And I would take them. And it's not even to do with God per se. Some of us, God will allow us to just have our way. And some of you might say, oh no, it's not possible because God, never say never. I would say to you as a Christian, never say never, because we've seen many, many times in the Bible where God has been angry when someone has not obeyed. And then he's just like, okay. Or when people didn't want to obey him, even us as kingdom standards, if we say, oh, I'm doing my own thing, it doesn't mean that it may not still happen one day. Maybe 3 years later it will happen. But many of us, God could say, okay, since you keep telling me you want to do your own thing, fine, do your own thing. And he could let you for a season go off, maybe even marry someone. You have a child with that person. But 3 years later, you still go and marry your kingdom spouse. So I'm just trying to explain that God is not someone that we should keep on telling him, I don't want my kingdom spouse, I've had enough of this process. Because he may just say, okay, I don't want to force you. God is not a God that forces. He doesn't force us. It's a privilege to serve him. And I know that it may not feel like that with this process, but if you're honest with yourself, you know this has been the best thing that's ever happened to you. Even though it's been a bit painful, but you're like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Even to your kingdom spouse that's been on the run. They also think, wow, God, you really do love me. I want you to read more of the song because your kingdom spouse says some more things through the song, like as in the lyrics. The lyrics go in, the lyrics talk about, I think it's the third verse where it sort of mentions that the loneliness that your kingdom spouse is facing and experiencing. So God has really allowed them to feel a level of loneliness that they've never felt before. A lot of their friends they turn to, their family, their people, they're not replying them. They're not showing up to support them in the way they used to. And it's because God is detaching some of those connections so that they can be with the right person. Everyone that gets married, they do have to be, there's some kind of detaching that happens. So if they used to turn to their uncle before for advice, their uncle's now busy. If they turn to mum for all this consolation, mum's now busy with other things like that. God will not allow them to keep getting all the comfort from their family or their friends. The one that they talk to for 2 hours, that person's not available anymore. And a lot of people around them are married. Everywhere they turn, married. And it starts to get to them that you're not married. And one thing that came to my mind, which I feel like maybe God put this in my heart, but it's like almost like they now have to hold the handbags. Like, oh yeah, he can hold the bags because he's not married. We're doing a group photo of all the, married people and he's not married. So here you go. You're holding all the bags. And it's like, what? I'm holding the bags. And so before they were the sort of like, they were seen as like the handsome one or oh, she's so pretty and she's just everyone wants her. But it's almost like no one is wanting them anymore because it's almost like people are starting to think, well, why are you not married? There must be something wrong with you. So it's almost like everything they're saying against you, people are starting to think, well, maybe you should actually take this opportunity. Maybe there's actually something wrong with you because you're the one that keeps running from it. Why are you running from a blessing that God is trying to give you? So even some of their friends and family have turned around and been like, do you know what? You are the problem. Like you need to... It's like a man that goes and complains about his wife or a wife that complains about her husband and then she's just met with a rebuke, basically. And so someone in their life has just rebuked them and said, listen, do not call me up again talking about this woman. You're clearly obsessed with her. Okay, if you want to, if you're so obsessed, just go and marry her already. And it's like, that's not what they wanted to hear, but that's what they heard. So just things like that. And it's so funny because there is this woman of God that she was running away from marrying her husband. She didn't want to know. Like, God had showed her in a dream and all sorts of things, and she just was like, no. She friend zoned him. She even said she brother zoned him instead. She like brother zoned him. Like, you're my brother, you're broski, like she was talking about that. They're now married and everything, but she did not want that at first because she got saved and she wanted to focus on the Lord. And he knew, he got to a point where he realized, and he was like, oh, I love you, I want to marry you, I want to, and she was like, no. And so she sort of like was like, no, you're my brother, you're my friend. And then in the end, what happened, this is how serious it got. Basically, this guy ended up moving on, meeting, they were still friends, but he met someone else and he started dating this girl. And basically that girl was so, the Lord like basically began to speak to that girl. She started hearing, she said to him, she told the guy, I'm hearing voices in my head that you're supposed to marry someone called Haley. And so this is a tip that basically on TikTok, there is a Christian couple and they shared this testimony. And so the guy was like, what? Because obviously he's already trying to pursue that girl and that was her name. And so imagine the girl that's meant to be dating him is now hearing voices in her head telling her you're meant to marry Haley. What kind of thing is that? Remember when God spoke to basically the man, who was it? Was it a king or a prophet? There was someone that actually took Sarah, because I think it was Abimelech or someone like that in the Bible. He basically was with Sarah because Abraham had to pretend that that's his sister. And then God met him in a dream and said, you're a dead man. That woman you're with, that's someone else's husband. And he was like, why didn't he tell me the truth? And, so a lot of these people that maybe the kingdom spouse has, is counterfeits and so on and so forth, even them, some of them have got to a point where they've dreamt of you every night. And they're like, they just ran. One day they just got up, they just took their stuff and just said, hey, you better do what God's saying. And they ran. And it ran in fear. And if it's not happened, these are the kinds of things that will happen because the Bible says, let God be true and let every man be a liar. And he's not lying to us with this kingdom spouse thing. And he will just continue to manifest until it happens. Just like with salvation, he just kept on allowing us to receive more and more and more conviction, more and more signs, more and more humbling, more and more pruning, until we had no choice but to give our lives to Jesus Christ. The amount of things I experienced just before I got saved, oh my goodness. One day I said to God on the street, okay, God, I've heard you. I'll do it. I promise. That's what I said to God. That's what I said on the way home one day when he finally let me have the final Paul moment. Like, I felt like I had a bit of a Paul moment on the street, walking back with a boyfriend at the time, and then I just felt like I had this like a moment where God just kind of got me on the street, and I just felt like a Damascus moment for me. That's how it felt. So yeah, read more of that. Read the whole song, the lyrics, and then make sure you listen to it, because at the end, the third verse, it says stuff around like how he, I remember the things you said and so on and so forth. I remember you would say that I was the one. And so your kingdom spouse has been remembering things you said, remembering different things you shared with them. And it's really helped. So all those things you thought you were doing that was maybe annoying them, God has used everything to his glory. And it's been helping them on the journey while they've been waiting, while they've been, God has been preparing them for this kingdom marriage. And just know that they have wanted to really reach out and apologize or make up with you or be with you, but God has not allowed them at some certain times because they were not really ready. Okay, God had to work on them enough to make sure that they don't come back and then leave again, or maybe they come back, but they come back not completely correct, or maybe they come back with pride, or come back just, maybe you would be the one that wouldn't receive them. So God has to make sure that you're both able to receive each other. So I hope this helps you guys. God is definitely bringing your person. Get ready, get prepared. I definitely will be. There's a link below that you can download for some ideas of how to prepare for kingdom marriage. There's 25 ideas of things you can do to prepare for kingdom marriage. So click on that link below. And I also have my course, if just in case you're interested. I did put out a program a few months ago called Kingdom Women Arise and Prepare for Marriage. This is for kingdom women, but if you're a kingdom man and you want to get the course, you can get it too. It's definitely more for women, but like I said, you're still going to learn great things if you're a man, if you're a kingdom man in this program. It's a 12-part video course, and there are other resources and PDFs and just lots of worksheets and stuff. And there's even like 50 questions to ask yourself before you go into kingdom marriage. No, I think it's 100 questions, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's 100 questions. There are 31 romance movies, like love and romance movies, that you can check out. So if you're interested in getting, like, really working on preparing for kingdom marriage, then yeah, get that program below, the section below this, and drop a comment, drop me a like, let me know how you're getting on, and I pray that God will give you grace and strength to keep persevering. You're so close now. Don't give up now. Don't let the devil win. He's a loser. He's a defeated foe. Let God arise and his enemies be scattered, and continue to stand for this promise, because it's so near now in many of our lives. All right, then, God bless you all. And I would love to hear your testimonies of when you're with your person. Like, you can, send me an email. I would love to hear, or if you want any prayer as well, send me an email. I also have a free call if you want to jump on a call with me to talk about what you're going through. We can pray together, or I can just give you some encouragement. All right, then. God bless you and be blessed. Bye. This is Queen Chioma from queenchiomamedia.com. God bless. Bye.